Hello, this is Brett Wild, and today we're going to do something really retro. I'm going to be using Pilotage, which is the very first type of navigation that I learned as a pilot. And it's basically drawing a line on a map and then taking off and flying that line by matching up what you're seeing on the ground with what you're seeing on your map. Of course, you can use a little dead reckoning by calculating your wind and your crab angle, which we will do in this case. This is the Coronado Cessna 210, and I've got the reality pack installed. So let's get started with a look at our map. So we're flying from this little airport, Othello, in Washington, state of Washington, and flying over Yakima, and then kind of near the base of Mount Rainier, we're going to fly to this little airport here called Packwood. And we're just going to be using things that we see on the ground. So as we take off, there's a ridge of mountains here called Saddle Mountains, and then there's a river. So we'll just want to make sure we're about halfway in between the bend and the river and this range of mountains, and then we'll want to be a little bit north of this airport, and we'll see some transmission lines here, and then we will be flying a little bit blind as hopefully we will have established the right bearing by the time we get here, because there's not a lot to look at until we get to this road and railroad, and we'll see Yakima and a rather large airport to the south of us. I don't know if we'll see this. It's awfully small. It's a little private airport. And then we will continue into some small mountains, and we'll want to make sure we're just a little bit north of this long lake. And then, because we need to make a descent down to 1,000 feet, I'll probably follow this path down, because we won't have enough time to make a descent if I just go over the mountain and then try to drop down. So that's what we're going to do. Now, I said we would do a little dead reckoning. So I've put in my course here at the top. And by the way, this is an online EB6 computer emulator, and by computer, I'm talking about the old manual computer that we just had in our lap, which helped us figure all this stuff out. Here's a picture of it, and I had one of these many years ago, but now we have the internet to help us out. So I've got a course of 246, and our true airspeed will be, I'm going to say, maybe 135. Whoops. Wind direction is out of the north. Our wind speed is 12. So we have a correction of 5. So we'll want to head into the wind with a heading of 251. And our ground speed is 139. Distance is 104. Ground speed 139, so it's about 45 minutes, and I will not bore you with a lot of dead air time, and I'll just tune in when we're approaching interesting fixes on the ground. And by the way, a fix is anything that you can either see on the ground, or a fix can be a VOR, it can be an intersection from two radials. A fix is just anything that you can use for navigational purposes. So let's jump in our airplane and get things started. I won't bore you with all the details of starting the airplane, since the purpose of this flight is to show pilotage. So I'll just clear the static elements and skip the pre-flight, because with the reality pack you have an extensive pre-flight you can do. So fuel on, mixture rich, full throttle, and I'll show you why, because we're going to prime our fuel here. Battery on, fuel pump on. I'm going to watch the fuel flow here. It comes up to 6 and then I'm going to kill it. And beacon on, clear our prop, and go ahead and start the engine. Throttle back, not too far. Don't want to foul the plugs. And let's see, we can, sorry, bouncing around here, I know it could make you sick. And we'll taxi, we'll be taking off to the west. Alternator on. And let's see, we're not going to be using our radios or navigation, but we will climb to 6,500 feet, and we want to make sure that our heading is correct once we get off the ground. So I'm just going to use standard baro for this flight and start by dropping a notch of flaps, and then let's do our taxi out to our runway. And why don't you join me in just a second. Alright, run up is complete. Let's turn on some landing lights here and strobe. We've got our notch of flaps, just wanted to check that. Check for traffic. And we're ready to roll. So we're headed in the right direction, and I'm just going to start looking for that range of mountains and that river after we get off the ground and the airplane cleaned up. And rotate, gear up. Trim the nose up a little bit and come back on our pitch 2500. And I said 250, so we'll start with 250, 251 I thought it was, but I don't think we'll be that accurate. And flaps up. Pull that nose up. And let's use our autopilot to make things a little bit easier. And we'll use heading. And we'll just arm our altitude. So I've got my views set to help us, but it's hard to look out over the cowling when you're climbing and see much. But you can see we've got a little lake over here. So if we zoom in as much as I can, that's probably this little lake here. but we're going to be watching for this. By the way, there is a restricted area, but I checked, it's NOTAM only, so the NOTAMs are giving us freedom to fly through here today. So again, here's that little lake. So I'm going to be going back and forth and probably driving you a little crazy. Now there's a road here and a little town. So if we look here, we've got our road and here's our town. And we've got a railroad here. I don't see it right off the bat. But again, town, we've got some airports off in the distance here. So I think this is the railroad here. But again, we don't want to rely too much on roads, especially with X-Plane, because a lot of roads get laid down by the software that don't exist. Now I'm using the mesh, high definition mesh 3. Of course, if you had ortho, like my buddy Steve, it would even be a more immersive experience. So we'll just get rid of the cowling for right now. But you can see our range of mountains here, and you can see the bend in the river. And we want to be right through the middle here. So it looks like we're headed a little to the south. So we can just notch this over a bit. And we're almost at 6,500 feet. Nose comes down. Just want to check watching my RPM here by adjusting my prop. We can come back on our throttle. And we can also lean our mixture. So I'm watching this needle here as I pull back, and that needle will rise. And when it comes back down a little bit, then I'll enrich in our mixture just a little bit. Now it's starting to come down, so we notch it forward a little bit. So our throttle is set, RPM set, and our mixture is leaned. So, range of mountains, and here's our river. Now, I didn't mean for it to be this dark, so I'm gonna pause our video, get back to you, and in the meantime I will make it a little bit brighter out. By the time we get there, it's going to be dark and you'll miss some of the excitement, and we might not be able to see our landmarks. So again, here's our bend in the river. There's a road that runs along here, and then these mountains. There's also some power lines that we will hopefully see. So back in a second. Like I said, I'll make it a little bit brighter. Notice this road here. There's our bend in the river. Nothing out here except our ridge. And here are our power lines. You can see them running along here. So they cross right here. They cross the road right here. So that might give us a clue as to where we should be. So here's where they Here's where they cross. So we should actually be a little bit south of where we are. Again, this is the joys of pilotage. So we'll adjust this a little bit. You know, winds change, speeds change. We're at 140. Ground speed is 161, so we probably don't need as much correction as I put in, which is probably why we are a little bit north. Now notice this road goes quite a bit south. We've got another set of power lines here, and I really don't see that road make that kind of a southern turn, but again, this is a simulator. So really the thing we're going to be looking for are two airports, or at least one airport and this river, and anything that's distinct about the river itself. And here again is our power line, and I don't really see one here. I just see this road. So again, not everything is completely accurate in this simulator. I wanted to point one thing out. If you look back and see this road that I said I didn't see heading south, also there's this little lake here. If you do look at the map, wasn't reading it very well, there is a spur of this road that heads south, and here's that little lake. So the next thing we want to be looking for is this airport right here. And also, just checking our river, it looks like there's a little outcropping here, a little bay or something. And it looks like we're headed just to the south of that. So I believe that's right here. So we'll just fly just a little bit to the south, and we want to be looking for that airport. One of the joys of night flying is that we would see a light, the beacon, which I do not see. So it looks like we're a little bit south of this, a little bit further south than I want to be. So I'm going to make an adjustment here. And also, here is our airport. Now we've got some no man's land here. So there is a range of mountains that comes here. There's another range below here, and we've got two peaks at 4,100 feet. But other than that, we don't have many landmarks. Now it says radar dish here. We'll never see that on our simulator. But I assume this would be our peak. So here's our airport. see that little bay here. So hopefully we have a good bearing and we can hold this even though there isn't much to use on the ground as a landmark. So I'll come back to you when we get a little bit closer to something more substantial on the ground. Alrighty, we are in this general area right here, so I'm going to be looking for this major highway. There's also, looks like a railroad here, large airport, city, looks like a stadium of some kind, and we've got power lines that come down. So let's see what we can find out our window. So here's that highway coming down, and it makes this little turn right here. So that would be probably right in here, because this is the end of our ridge. Kind of comes to a taper here. This comes around. So we want to be north of that, which we are. You can see how it makes this more dramatic turn there. So let's see where that is. That's right here. And here is our power line. You can see it coming down here. So that crosses the road right here. So we might be just a little bit to the south. See if we can find our airport out here. Should be right here in this general area. But large town, again our road. Now is there anything that we can see on the other side of that? There is another road that takes off here to the northwest. Starts out 2 lanes, drops to 1, but not much else to plan on. So the next thing we're going to be looking for is this lake, but it is on the other side of a ridge. So we might be working hard on this one. So here is that road, and there's a couple little towns here. Looks like there's a little river. So town here. Yeah, there's some little towns along here. But again, nothing really substantial other than this road, which we'll see off to our right. Probably this one. So this is that highway that heads off to the northwest, and this ridge. So if you can read the terrain on the map, that might make it a little easier, but you can see this little valley here, which I assume is in through here. So we might want to head just a little bit to the north, because we want to just skim the top part of that lake. So we'll just tweak our heading a little bit, which is fine, because this is pilotage and we're just using landmarks. There's that road that heads off to the northwest. And I don't know if you can see many details. I think we're probably right about here because it looks like it goes down to a single lane. Which it appears to do. Straining to look over the cowling. Okay, I'll get back to you as we get closer to that lake. Alright, wanted to point out another set of transmission lines and a road down here. And if we look at our map, we're right here. So we're going to pass just to the north of this peak and right along this valley. And we're probably, and here's our lake, so we're probably just a little bit south of where I want to be. Let me just crank this just a little bit. Subtle moves. And here is that road and river. And here are the transmission lines. Now we might be able to see an airport down here. I think it's just a grass strip. Teton State. And it's right at the base of this little bump in the landscape here. I think it's this. So that runway should be down here. I see a clearing in the trees. But anyway, here's our lake. Here's the little inlet. Ah, lights just came on. How convenient. So where do we want to be in relationship? Right over the edge of it. So right over the top of that little rise. So as I think about our descent, I'm a little nervous about just flying straight over the top of these mountains and then trying to make a rapid descent. So I'm going to follow this pass down and use it as my descent route, so to speak. And there is a road that goes right along here. There's another lake here. You can barely make them out, but there's one here. So we'll head off in this direction. Alright, here is our road and our little valley here and a couple of lakes. And we'll just follow our valley. No reason I couldn't be hand flying this, but remember I pointed out those little lakes. There's our road. And as we come over the ridge, it's time to end the autopilot portion of our flight and begin our descent. Come back on our power. And we're just going to follow this valley or pass. on down. And we'll hold it about 1,000 feet a minute. There's our road down here. And I'm trying to trim the airplane to hold us at 1,000. So our airport is at 1,000 feet and change. So we want a pattern altitude of 1,000, but I might even drop it down to 800 because of the close confines. It is a north-south runway, 10 and 190. So we'll fly a downwind, left downwind, after we fly over the airport. Mount Rainier off in the distance, just about 1 o'clock. And we'll be looking for our airport. That beeping sound is a call for the landing gear. There's our airport. Check our fuel. I want to slow the airplane down, so I want to get down to my altitude sooner than later. And we'll fly over our airport. And we can put our gear down. Trying to get down to 80. So our airport looks clear. Now if this airport had an Unicom, we could call and announce our intentions. But let's enter a downwind. And we can put in a notch of flaps. Getting some thermals or something here. So we'll hold our speed, using my compass to hold the 190. And I think we're far enough out we can begin our turn to base. Another notch of flaps. Whoops. How about I needed an S-turn to bleed off some altitude, huh? That was a real short base. Final notch of flaps. Looks like we're going to be flying through some trees here. Sorry about that, but and safely on the ground. So, except for our extended base there and our little S-turn, I think that wasn't a bad flight. So, thanks for joining me and watching me go back in time, doing a little pilotage. Until next time, this is Brad Wild.